Hi, this is Larry Dignan from Constellation Insights, and we're here with Andy Thurai from Constellation Research. How you doing, Andy?
Good, man. You?
Good. So Andy and I were hanging out at AWS Summit New York, and
That we did.
we have a bunch of takeaways. I think my biggest one was that it took a turn for the practical, which I'm seeing a lot more of. It seems like they're adding a lot of little features that are designed to take this stuff from pilot to production. So I guess Andy, what's one of your big takeaways from the summit?
Yeah. So that what you just said, they are trying to move the messaging and the technology from, if you think about it in the past, they are more about a Lego building block company. We'll give you a bunch of Legos, you'll assemble the way you want it, optimize it efficiently, and you run it in the cloud. But now their messaging is slightly different. They're trying to take it to the next level because to begin with, AI itself is very complicated and it's moving very fast. So they don't want to go to the googly blocks, which they are providing, by the way, as well. But they're trying to up-level the message in each of the stacks. If you look at the three stacks, what you showed there at the conference, Matt Wood, that is, and he's talking about three levels and how you can up-level each of the levels and start building it at each of the levels.
Yeah, I mean the conference focused on, Bedrock, obviously, which frankly it's turned into a platform play. Straight up. They're adding a lot of features that seem to matter to enterprises. Guardrails was one.
Yep.
Being able to fine tune is another.
Yep.
All the customization and connectors to different enterprise silos of data and systems was also interesting. Where do you think they're going with that?
So, again, moving away from the building blocks, they're up-leveling into saying that, we'll provide everything else you need to build an enterprise solid grade applications. But it's not just about building an enterprise grade. They're also talking about providing for the compliance industries. Remember when he started the conversation, he talked about financial services, life sciences, healthcare, and the rest. These are some of the heavily regulated industries. So they have this nuanced messaging saying that, one, you have to move to cloud. Two, if you're a regulated industry, you're worried about privacy, security, and compliance and all of that. We provide that. So they want to move these industries, which are classically known to, hang on to their data centers, not moving everything to the cloud. You should consider moving, and we are the only choice. That's a message across, and all of the components, what they release, is somewhat around that. Some of them are big, some of them are small, but entire thing, they're trying to get the message out saying that, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So, if you are an enterprise, if it is good for this compliance regulated industries, when they are deciding to move to our cloud, you should consider that too.
Well, I think where the industry focus gets interesting here is that there's two things going on. One, AWS has a nice position with the regulated industries. The other part of this is if you are looking to show use cases that went from pilot to production, they are also most likely to be the regulated industries because they're the ones that have their data acts together. So it's sort of like this win-win messaging side, which is kind of totally flipped from what it used to be. Like regulated industries were typically seen as slow, clinging to servers, not necessarily heavy into cloud per se, maybe 50-50 or so. But now it's really kind of gone full circle, and AWS is leaning into the industry stuff a lot. And I think it's a pretty solid move overall.
It is. So they did a couple of things on that front, right? One, remember that I think earlier this year, I think it was January timeframe or something, earlier this year, they reorganized their teams in such a way that the sales motion teams, especially, more geared towards industry verticals. That never used to be the case. They used to be more of a technology horizontal forever. It is other companies, IBMs of the world, HPs of the world, Oracles of the world, they are more towards industry use cases, industry verticals. I've started in the last 6 months or so, not only they hired a lot of people with industry expertise, but also they started publishing a lot of industry use cases. That's one. And two, they specifically said, we will never use your data when you're using it as a service, that it'll never commingle with others. That's one of the major concerns a lot of those regulated industry folks have. So they want to prove Your data is secure, it's private. We will take care of your data and we don't mix it with others. And we are the right place to do. So that's a message they're trying to get in. It's a little complicated, nuanced message, but I think they got it right.
Yeah, and I think things like the bedrock additions, the guardrails, like they're speaking to the broader enterprise, but I think the wins, both commercially and use case wise, are going to be in those regulated industries.
Yep.
The other thing that stuck out for me was basically how AWS they're moving up the stack in a way that aligns with how they've always operated. Like if you look at Q Apps, which, the news out of AWS Summit in New York was that Q Apps is, GA now. And this idea that you're basically going to have this composable software, it's going to leverage GenAI and basically become the UI. And it's very interesting to hear them talk about it, because ultimately I could see this very, very disruptive to enterprise software, which they're trying to create co-pilots for their little worlds.
Right.
The HR, the CRM. And so now you have AWS, and it's not the only vendor though. There are a bunch of vendors kind of playing this game. And they're kind of coming over top of it, which will relegate a lot of this enterprise software to basically being plumbing, kind of like how a lot of people view SAP and things like that.
Yeah. So
that's fascinating to me.
Yeah, there are two things in there. One is the Q Apps or QApps as they call it. That's one. And then I don't know if you noticed that they also have a different one called AWS App Studio, which also helps build apps in a low-code, no-code way. So in case of the QApps, what they try to do is that essentially, if you're trying to, let's say, look, at the end of the day, generative AI still is an early stage. The prompt engineering is one of the most complicated ones. How do you prompt? It depends on it's going to decide your answers. So that's why prompt engineers get paid a lot of money, right? So what they're trying to do is that if you're able to do this very detailed prompts for 1 or 2 times in getting specific answers, they're trying to make AI understand, saying that, okay, this is what you're trying to do. You know what? There is some value to it. Instead of me making you do the detailed prompts once again, or multiple times by other people, let me capture the essence of it. And I'll spit out an application that you will do a profile. For example, the one they were demonstrating is the HR one, I think, about onboarding somebody. So you will give me the role of the person who are coming in, what need to be done. I will take care of those things on the back end. I'll retain the same as, the memory retention they were talking about. I'll retain the contextual knowledge of that. And then I'll give you a simplistic user interface that I'll build an app for you. It's a very rudimentary app. But all you have to do is that instead of typing this detailed prompt that the business users wouldn't know how to do it, but then I'll take care of it, and then you have to enter just what you want from the business side. This is the profile of the person. This is the knowledge we got. This is what I need to get done. Boom, your app is right there. So in that sense, what they're trying to do is that have a technical user do the prompt one time, and then the business user will take care, and then from there, without worrying about the prompt, continue to build that app. That, if it clicks, if people realize that, start using it, that could be a huge win for them.
Yeah, I mean, I could see, like you said, it's very early days, but I do think that whole space is the only thing I think's missing from that Gen AI and these, kind of composable apps over top everything else approach is probably the process stuff. Like, I think they're going to have to get into, process automation and process mining and sort of to do that overlay properly. So you're properly,
which is what they're trying to avoid, right? I mean, yes, if you get into that, you'll get into that enterprise gobbledygook. So they don't want to do that. So they're saying, okay, either I'll give you all the basic components, you build what you want, or we'll avoid that the whole thing. You go to the next level, I'll build it at the top level. So we don't want you to go through that mess. So in that sense, they're going to go after all the RPA, workflow companies, your ServiceNows of the world. They're trying to avoid that whole middleman. So either I give you this, you build what you want completely. I'll give you this, you don't have to worry about it at all. So, yeah.
It's very early, but
it is.
I mean, I think it's a theme we will probably pay attention to for the next 2-3 years. Yeah, it's just going to be fascinating to watch.
And also, they are trying to build their connectors as fast as they can with the enterprise sources. I mean, right now they got
Right.
only Salesforce and Influence. I'd like to see a lot more. Things like your ERP systems, your SAPs of the world, your Oracles of the world, your CRM systems, and there are a lot more to enterprise data than the ones they demonstrated there. I'm hoping they'll bring it in. Until they bring that in, you're going to always operate. This is one of the problems with the generative AI, right? The unstructured data, even though it's complicated, it's easy to gather across everywhere because you go and scrape the internet mostly and bring it in together. But the structured data, as you were suggesting on stage, is siloed within an enterprise and governed very closely with all kind of access restrictions and the whole 9 yards. So that's why when you're trying to bring them all together, it's going to be extremely complicated. And that's why they also demonstrated the fine-tuning capabilities, that you take that model that is trained in a public data, and then you bring it inside the enterprise. And almost they suggested one-click fine-tuning or auto-ragging equivalent of that. So they'll take the enterprise data and either fine-tune it and or produce a RAG system using that, probably agent-based system, that can add value to it. It sounds so simple, but it is not that simple process.
No, not
One
at
has
all.
to see how it'll shift out. But
Yeah, I
that's
think
what we're going after.
I think it's going to be. Yeah, I think the other thing to watch here is how much AWS does by itself, and how much it does with partners, like that partnership with Deloitte, where they showed all those industry apps, and it's kind of the same concept in that you're doing the overlay on these other systems, but it's going to be fun to watch. So
I mean, they're known for always having a big partners, right? Because they know the go-to-market is not going to happen until you ride the big five firms. So they have had good relationship with them, but that's on the cloud side of things. With AI now, everybody's trying to figure it out. So some of the use cases were catchy, but I didn't see a lot of the industrial production grade enterprise use cases that will make the CIOs jump out and say, wow. It's more of a, maybe it could be because we were demoed the innovation lab things, what they have going on. And most of the use cases were like one-time custom implementations too. It's not like a generic enterprise grade. Yeah, when I look at it as a CIO, I'm like, oh my God, I need to get that. It didn't come across to me like that. So I'm sure they'll build.
It's going to be a balancing act. But yeah, if you're going to play in the industries,
yeah,
especially the regulated ones, you need all those big partners that they seem to have.
Yep.
So the final thing that stuck out for you was the sustainability pitch, which I'll be honest with you, when I hear that, on the one hand, I'm like, oh, that's great. On the other hand, my eyes glaze over because there's so much greenwashing and ESG washing, and so.
Which is true. So here's the thing, though. So this is the argument I had with one of the powerful CIOs, and he was suggesting, look, at the end of the day, we are too early in the AI cycle, generative AI cycle in particular. The least we have to worry about right now is cutting ourselves at the knees and crippling, worrying about using less energy, more efficiency, and all kind of things, right? So not a lot of companies are talking about, especially the LLM companies, generative AI mega model companies, because the work as is, the energy required, the work effort required is so monumental. They're still to an extent in the innovation phase. So they're not worried about the efficiency and maturity phase. That'll mature when you go to the maturity phase. So they're not worried about talking about all of these things. The only two companies that I see constantly speaking about renewable energy in this space, one is AWS, the other one is HPE, to my knowledge. Maybe others to a smaller extent, but these are the two that going out big time. In case of AWS, what they suggested is, they said Amazon runs on 100% renewable energy, and you demoed that or showed the info up there. So essentially, what he's suggesting is all of the information, all of the things what they run on. Not just we're talking about all the data centers, all the training model, everything. Not only that they produce enough energy, but also what they buy is 100% renewable energy. So they're saying it's all 100% renewable. It's a message. I don't know if it is good or bad, because I don't see the enterprises at a level. They're saying, okay, you have this model here, they have that model there. your model is trained more kosher way, energy kosher way, or energy efficient ways. I'm going to go with you. I don't think they are there yet. So I don't think that message resonates, but I just jumped out at me saying that, oh, wow, I never seen them do that message before. Now they are claiming 100%. Maybe good in the long run. Maybe things will turn to their favor. But right now, it's just a message. I don't know how much of traction it'll have.
I think it's a long game for two reasons. One, the sustainability does equate into cost. The other part is all these companies are just getting started on their scope 3 emissions and all that. And that requires tracking all your partners' emissions too. So if you are a cloud provider that can say, we're not going to screw up your scope 3 emission tracking because we're neutral, or however they're calculating, I didn't get into the math too much, then that's a winning strategy. But are companies sweating scope 3 just yet? They're just starting to.
Right.
So that may be another thing where that kind of sustainability play, it might have a 2-year time horizon kind of thing.
It is, but also there is another thing they demonstrated, which I thought was pretty interesting on the similar lines of message. I forget the name of the company. There was this company they were talking about training, maybe it is Anthropic who trained it model on Amazon. They said by training entirely on their Trainium and using Inferentia, the costs were almost about 60 or 70% less than what they would have used, even though the GPUs were available in their cloud. So what they're suggesting is, we'll give you a combination of GPU, CPU, NPU, whatever you need. Based on your need, you can even reserve. Remember, that's another thing that's a differentiator. When you go to other providers, if it is not available, if you have to do on demand, you got to pay a lot more. With Amazon, you could schedule the service saying that this is the model I'm going to train 1 week, 10 days, 2 weeks from now. Reserve all of those things for me. So it's at a reserves pricing, not at on-demand pricing, a lot cheaper, but you could reserve exactly the combo you want. And they were suggesting if you were to specifically use Amazon, everything Amazon, Trainium and Inferentia and whatnot, your cost could be even cheaper, 50 or 60% cheaper. So that, when you can demonstrate to your C-level executives that I can do the same exact model at about 20% of the cost it'll cost me, that in the case of renewable and sustainable energy, that in my view, will be more compelling than talking about this renewable energy. Because, I don't want to spend, let's say, $20 million in training massive models. But if you own only $2 million, oh yeah, let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens, right?
Yeah, so fascinating times.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for joining us.